All right, I'm going to tell you guys a little secret. I taught this book to my 101 class last semester, and it was the first time I ever taught it, and I was really nervous that it was going to go really badly, and it went really well. But I got to say, doing this a second time, like going through it for you guys, I'm really getting the hang of this much better. I'm doing a much better job than I did last time. This is really, I'm kind of getting excited now. I'm getting like kind of, I love Plato. I love Plato, I love Shakespeare, I love Kafka, and I love old Hollywood movies. And you can take all these classes with me as you go. So, all right, this is exciting. Um, okay, so this is the last video for today, and for the week. Huh? Hey, when you finish this video in like 9 minutes, this will be the end of the week, and all you have to do is go comment on some things. And papers aren't due for a little bit, but you can go check out the assignments. You go to the discussion board, you make some comments. So this is going really well so far. I'm very, very happy. Okay, let's go see how this is going. The coffee's helping. If you're skeptical about them, meaning you don't just believe any story you hear, and don't disbelieve it either. Just think about it. If he is skeptical about them and would fain reduce them one after another to the rules of probability, meaning if you fain means desire. If you don't believe them right away, and if you want to reduce them one after another to the rules of probability, this sort of crude philosophy will take up a great deal of time. So he's saying, like, don't spend all your time thinking about mythology shit and trying to figure it out. Like, don't just, if something's not true, just don't even listen to it. I mean, you can spend your days trying to like explain how conspiracy theories work, but he doesn't think that's a good use of your time. Coming up with, hearing nonsense and trying to figure out if there's any sense in it. He says it'll eat up all of your time. He says, now I have no such leisure for such inquiry. Shall I tell you why? Now, this next bit is possibly the most famous, wait, is it? Yes. This next sentence is possibly the most famous sentence in the history of philosophy. And I know that's a big thing to say, but this is a big one. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it because it's not really connected super good to the subject of the class, but this is one of the most famous sentences in the history of philosophy. Socrates says, I don't have time for this. You know why? I must first know myself. As the Delphin inscription says, this is like a famous shrine. It says, know thyself. I must first know myself. To be curious about that which is not my concern while I am still in ignorance of my own self would be ridiculous. And therefore, I bid farewell to all of this. This is one of the most famous sentences in philosophy. This is Socrates' mission in life. What is it? Know yourself. That is his goal in philosophy. He has to know himself, and to spend time learning about all this mythology and all this stuff that other people came up with. He says, that is not my mission in life. He says, I don't have time for any of that stuff. It would be ridiculous to be so interested in things that have nothing to do with me when I don't know anything about myself. And so he really wants to find out about himself and what's going on in here. If you've ever heard the phrase, to thine own self be true, it comes from Shakespeare's Hamlet. But really, it comes from this. Shakespeare got it from this, I think. The idea that knowing yourself, self-knowledge, to thine own self be true. You got to know who you are as a person. And Socrates was like the first person to ever say that. He really felt like that was the most important thing. And so he doesn't want to concern himself with mythologies and all this crazy stuff. Ooh, look at the cat. Guys, look at the kitty cat. Look at that guy. He's right up there. Okay. So Socrates says, I got to know myself. And for Socrates, the study of philosophy is the study of yourself. You got to learn who you are as a person and what really matters. And don't waste your time on a bunch of things that don't concern you, like mythology and shit. Now, this is going to get complicated because Socrates is going to talk about mythology a lot later on, but we'll get to that. For right now, Socrates is saying, I think this mythology stuff is bullshit. I'm not wasting my time on it. Okay, cool. Yes, I have to know myself, and therefore I bid farewell to all this. The common opinion is enough for me. Whatever people say, I don't care about. Whatever, it's fine. For as I was saying, I want to know not about this, but about myself. I am a monster more complicated and swollen with passion than the serpent Typho, or a creature of gentler and simpler sort, to whom nature has given a diviner and lowlier destiny. But let me ask you. So he says, listen, there's a lot of monsters. You could learn about mythology monsters. He says, I want to learn about myself. He says, I'm more interesting than any kind of monster or creature out there that somebody made up. And for me, it's true. I got to find out about my own kind of truth, and not about monsters and stuff. So he says, but let me sorry, I get bit by mosquitoes a lot. He says, but let me ask you, friend, have we not reached the plane tree to which you were conducting us? Yes, this is the tree. This is here, a fair resting place full of summer sounds and scents. It's a nice place to be. Here is this lofty and spreading plane tree, and the Agnes cast us high and clustering in the fullest blossom of the greatest fragrance. So they're just saying nice flowers and trees and shit. And the stream which flows beneath the plane tree is deliciously cold to the feet. See, we don't really care about this in our class. We care about philosophy, and he's just talking about how beautiful nature is. How delightful is the breeze, so very sweet, and there is a sound in the air, shrill and summer-like, which makes answer to the chorus of the cicadas. But the greatest charm of all is the grass, like a pillow gently sloping to the head. My dear Phaedrus, you have been an admirable god. So he's just saying, isn't it nice to be out in nature? Because they've left the city and they're out in nature now. And Socrates, this is something we're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I'll just tell you this for fun. Socrates is a city guy. I also am a city guy. I don't really like nature. But Socrates is a city person. He likes cities. Why? Because he likes people. He likes to talk to people because he thinks the only way to do philosophy is to talk to people. You're not going to do philosophy walking out in the woods, with trees. You got to engage with human beings. So one of the interesting things about this is they're about to have this big complicated conversation about the nature of truth and reality and love. And Socrates is not in his normal element. He is not at home. Socrates is usually walking around city streets, and because Phaedrus has decided to take a walk out into the country, now they're in the middle of nowhere by a river and a tree. And this is like a very different environment, and you'd think Socrates is very famous for living in a city. He loves his city. Athens, by the way. And actually, let me say one more thing, too. I don't know whether you guys, what kind of TV shows you guys watch. I don't know if you have Netflix. But if you know The Good Place, which is, by the way, I said Avatar was my favorite show of all time, and also Korra. But one of my top 5 TV shows of all time is a television show called The Good Place. And if you know The Good Place, it's a really neat show. If you have Netflix, you can watch it. The Good Place is a story of a woman who dies and goes to heaven. And when she gets to heaven, she meets her soulmate, who is a philosopher, and she reveals to him a secret, which is that there's been some kind of mistake, and she should not be in heaven because she is a dirtbag. And so she gets her soulmate, not her soulmate because they've made some kind of mistake, this is the wrong guy, to keep her secret. And he's going to teach her to be a good person so that she can stay in heaven, because otherwise she just found out hell is real. So if they catch her in heaven, she's not supposed to be there. They're going to send her to hell. And so she essentially teams up with a philosopher in heaven to learn how to be a better person. If you've seen, I think the show's wonderful. It's one of my favorite shows of all time, forever and ever. But if you've seen the show, the philosopher's name is Chidi, and he's amazing. He talks about Plato and Socrates all the time. He talks about Athens. Actually, in the last episode, they go to Athens, which is the famous city where Plato lived, and they go and see where Plato taught. But it's a TV show about philosophy, and if you've ever seen it, Plato and Socrates are mentioned many, many times in The Good Place. All right, cool. Okay, so I would highly recommend that for you. Phaedrus says, what an incomprehensible being you are, Socrates. When you were in the country, as you say, you are really like some stranger who is led about by a guide. Do you ever cross the border? Meaning, do you ever leave the city? I think rather you never venture even outside the gates. And he says, that's true. I don't do very true, my good friend. And I hope that you will excuse me when you hear the reason, which is that I am a lover of knowledge, and the men who dwell in the city are my teachers, not the trees or the country. So he's here to learn about. He needs to learn from people and human beings, because what does Socrates love? Discourse. What is discourse? Words, talking, philosophy. And he says you can't get that from trees. You can't get that from rivers. You got to get it from talking to human beings. And so he doesn't like being out in the country because there's no people out there. The people are in the city, and Socrates' home is the city. And he teases Phaedrus. He's sort of joking around, and he says, I do indeed believe that you have found a spell with which to draw me out of the city into the country like a hungry cow, before whom a bough or bunch of fruit is waved. For only to hold up before me in like manner a book, and you may lead me all around Attica or over the wide world. And now having arrived, I intend to lie down, and you may choose any posture in which you can rest. Begin. So he says, Phaedrus, you lured me out here in the middle of nowhere. How did you do it? Just like you would hold fruit in front of a cow to get him to chase you, Phaedrus had a speech in his pocket. And Socrates followed him out because he loves speeches and words. And it's the only way to get him out into nature because he really cares about that kind of stuff. So good. I think we've finished. We're almost done with page 2. Guys, you've successfully completed the second week of class. Good job. I will see you guys next week.